Chris Roberts. Chris Roberts is answering a question on Spectrum. Hey guys, how you doing? Hope you're having a wonderful day. Chris Roberts coming through with an answer. He picked a question and giving us an answer on the dynamic economy. Now the question came from Rainwalker, and the question was, how is the dynamic economy shaping up, and is server meshing an essential requirement before quantas show up? Short answer, it's coming along, and no. Thank you for joining me today. If you enjoy my content, give me a thumbs up and subscribe. Do you want the more complicated answer? He's going to give it to you right here. So if first you're asking what is a dynamic economy and what is quantas, well, Tony Zurvak showed us all this back in Citizencon last year. Let me play a quick clip for you. Here he is.
Aluminum inventory as fast as they could get it. And the reason why you see that spike there in the aluminum inventory is because as soon as we altered the formula.
Now what they're showing you here is their backend that's sped up a lot, and each one of these green dots represents an NPC transporting a material to a hub or a station because there's an imbalance in price and NPCs are reacting dynamically to that. So this is what they showed us, and it was very cool to see because at the moment we have no dynamic economy, but this is the backend of how it's going to look.
So that power plants now require laranite. They were still receiving from all these freighter transports. They still had aluminum coming in, but they could no longer produce power plants. So it stalled, and then all of a sudden they started stockpiling. And then when you see that the aluminum started falling, that's because finally they started receiving supplies of laranite, and they were able to resume the production process. And so all of a sudden, their aluminum started getting burned off at a natural rate.
And applause. All right, so what he showed there was essentially how a market economy works. There's supply, demand, there's shortages. If some factory needs a certain material that is rare, there'll be a higher price for it, and it encourages NPCs to essentially go and take materials to places where they're needed from places they have high supply, a dynamic economy. And the question was essentially, how is this shaping up and where is it? So let's take a look at Chris's answer here. First of all, he goes on to say that Tony and his team have been spending a lot of time this year fleshing out the internal infrastructure of the dynamic economy and the universe simulation, which they call quantum. Why they call it quantum? I don't know. Like, there's already a quantum drive, but anyway, let's not digress. Increasing data flow from dedicated game servers, DGS, to quantum. Linking various game services. These are specific services for things like shops, commodities, resources, encounters, probability volumes, AI spawns, and service beacons. Reading state from backend databases like persistent databases, improving quanta, improving star map and play analytics so you can have a full view of the player's activities. All right, we get it. There's things happening on the backend. He goes on to mention, this is the video I just showed you exactly there. And where is this at the moment? Well, he goes to tell us that over the next couple of quarters, the team is going to work on further fleshing out quantum behaviors and variety, tourists, entertainers, blue-collar workers, white-collar office workers, etc. So there's a lot of life coming into the game, and it's all related to this. Tourism, interesting. Entertainers, don't know much about that, but that's good. Blue-collar workers, white-collar office workers. So if you're in an office environment, you see people in suits walking around, all related to the system. And continue linking the overall simulation to the services to allow to start to drive things in the game you are playing, including upcoming dynamic mission system. Now, the first thing we're going to see is fuel and repair. Fuel and repair costs are likely to be the first instance of the price driven by the back-end simulation. Now, if there's a fuel depot in a certain area and that fuel depot is depleted because everyone's filling up, there's going to be a high demand for fuel in that area. That high demand, now if you have a Starfarer, this game loop is not in at the moment, but in the near future, when you have a Starfarer and you can take fuel from one area where it's in high supply to an area of high demand, you can make the profits from making that route until such point where that area taken it to has been saturated with fuel, bringing the cost down, and now you must find a new place to go and transport the fuel to. So the game is going to be different all the time. There's not going to be one route you always take. That route is going to be changing. It may be safe sometimes, it may be dangerous sometimes. Dynamic gameplay, obviously very important, and will keep the game very, very interesting. From there, we will slowly start pushing out the quantum simulation like encounters, probability volumes, commodity, retail goods, pricing, stock resource, and persistence. Let us go on. As far as server meshing being a prerequisite for quantum, that is not the case. Surprising, I thought it would be. So why is it not the case? The server mesh is the optimization that will allow the universe to be dynamically broken up into individual islands, each of which is controlled by a DGS, allowing us to scale the concurrent player count inside a single unified reality beyond what an individual server could handle. Quantum is responsible for the big picture of the universe. Quantum is not dependent on the server mesh, as it's a level above the server mesh, but Quantum is what allows the server mesh to reflect the dynamic state of the universe. Okay, so server meshing does not need to be in for this to be working. Good news, I guess, because server meshing is still a way out. And to finish off, that does not mean that Quantum is a prerequisite for server meshing, though it's just the universe won't be as dynamic without Quantum driving it. In the same way that iCache is not a prerequisite for Quantum, but when online, it will allow for more fidelity of object state and tracking in the Quantum simulation. And that essentially answers the question. So, all right. I learned a little something there, but nothing overly too new. And again, they mentioned that this will be coming out in Q2 or Q3 of next year. So some time to go, but obviously they're working on the back end, and it's actually going to add a lot to the game. So we're going to have to wait for that. But overall, worth waiting for. So guys, let me know, what do you think? Dynamic universe coming our way. Got to be patient though. If you enjoy this content, you know what to do. I'll catch you in the next one.